Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Throwing Partners podcast. It's Kirby and Joe here, coming to you on a Thursday night with special guest Nathan, our resident Motor City Kitties fan. So, as you guys know, the Tigers were eliminated. I want to start us off tonight with Nathan giving us his thoughts on the Tigers season. Nathan, go ahead.
I think still follows what we've talked about in the last few episodes. This is a season that was not expected to happen. Back in August, we were 8 games under 500. I thought the season was wrapped up, and quite frankly, AJ bringing all the young guys up from AAA, I thought that pretty much marked it off for them too. But we made it in. We beat the Astros, and we gave Cleveland one hell of a ride. 5 games in the ALDS, and including Tarek School's go-ahead grand slam he gave up in I think it was the 6th inning there. But that series was just a dogfight. I mean, at the start, they jumped us first game. They scored 5 runs in the first inning. I mean, they needed a gimme game. We played way too well against Houston, so I think that was coming. It was made for them. Game 2, it was quiet. It was a pitching duel, and then in the 9th we had that very infamous now to Ohioans is the 3-run homer by Kerry Carpenter off Emmanuel Clase. Which capped off that game. That was an exciting end to that. Game 3, we took that as well at home, 3-0. Pretty quiet game, I think. We jumped on Cobb in the 2nd or 3rd inning, and just had Brant Herter and Tyler Holton carry us back to the end. Game 4 is when it started to crumble. That was David Fry's pinch hit home run, and then his sac bunt in the 9th. Unbelievable. That's crazy playing small ball in that in that situation, but they stole that one from us at home and forced game 5. And like I said earlier, Tarek School grand slam in the 6th by Lane Thomas, and that was a game there. They brought in Grim Reaper, Emmanuel Clase, and that wrapped up our season. I think I'm very proud of the team. We definitely obviously showed grit there in the second half, right at the end, to get us into the playoffs, and I think it leaves us in a good spot for the off season and for the young guys coming up next year. So that's where I'll leave it.
Well, I definitely think it was a terrific season for sure, especially where they were at around the All-Star break and even later into July. But also, I think it was great for those young guys, especially to get a taste of the postseason, because all of them will want to go back. They are going to be fired up in spring training and ready to go back. So I'll be interested to see what moves they make in the offseason. Hopefully they can go out and get some starting pitching, maybe fill some corner spots or something like that. But anyway, it was really fun to watch the Tigers play, especially beating the Astros. Sorry, Joe. Moving on from that, I think we wanted to talk a little bit about this ALCS matchup between the Guardians and the Yankees. I just want to say this. First of all, I just got done watching Game 3 of that ALCS, and let me just say that's one of the best postseason games I have watched in a long time. That was a fantastic game. You see Big Christmas in the bottom of the ninth, tie it up with a 2-run dinger. Like 109 off the bat. I mean, it was just unreal. It was an absolute missile. And then David Fry walks it off in the bottom of the next inning. Great game. I was happy to see the Guards come away with a win there, especially after they had already blown the lead, in which I really thought was they were going to end up losing that game. So to see them come back and win, especially with two-run home runs, is huge because they're not known for having a lot of power. So I'm happy to see that. I hope that they give the Yankees a run for their money. I don't know that they end up um, winning that series, but I would sure like to see that series go 6 or 7 games. That'd be great. Um, Joe, do you have any thoughts on this ALCS matchup so far?
Yeah, I do. I was pretty much ready to write the Guardians off. Going down 2-0 in the Bronx. After Soto and Stanton's big home runs in game one, putting them past the Guardians, 5-2. Rondon pitched, like he deserved the contract the Yankees gave him. He's pitched good in the last two postseason games that he's appeared in. So I think the Yankees are pretty happy with that as of right now. And I think that Juan Soto has consistently been proving as of late, during this postseason run, that he deserves the bag and that he needs to be in New York if they want to succeed long term. Because, quite frankly, outside of the last two games in the postseason, Aaron Judge hasn't done diddly squat. I mean, he's been absent, which he has been his whole career. And Giancarlo Stanton, honestly, it's like the calendar flips to October and him and Stanton like switch bodies. It's like the Monstars came down and switched Stanton and Judge because they play like exact opposites from the regular season to the postseason. But as I said, Judge has played better in these last two games. But yeah, I mean they got 6 innings out of Rondon. He only gave up 3 hits and he had 9 strikeouts, so he was absolutely dominant. And then Luke Weaver came in and shut the door. He, up until this point, up until today, had been one of the hottest relievers in baseball as the Yankees closer. He pitched an inning and 2/3, and he gave up no hits, no earned runs, 1 walk, and 4 strikeouts. So, he was absolutely dominant in that Game 1 win. The Yankees bullpen has been lights out until today. So, it was good to see as an Astros fan. It was good to see the Guardians kind of put a dent in them. Although I don't think it will hold up over the course of the series. I'm hoping it does, but unfortunately, I think that we are headed for either a Subway Series or a Dodgers Yankees World Series. So moving on to Game 2, the Yankees won 6-3. Judge hit his first home run of this postseason, and that kind of carried the Yankees past the Guardians. Jumping out to that 2-0 lead. It is what it is. I mean, the Guardians, in my opinion, weren't supposed to be here. I don't know who was supposed to be here because I think the Tigers kind of messed things up. Not gonna lie, I think the Tigers kind of messed things up. But it is what it is. Can't complain. That's more of the Astros' fault than anything. But as Kirby mentioned, we probably got one of the most exciting games of the postseason. There have been a lot of games that have gone back and forth over the course of this postseason. And this was just, the tip of it because, I mean, this was an insane game. As we mentioned, Noel hit that big home run in the bottom of the ninth with 2 outs. I mean, he crushed that ball from Weaver, who up until that point had been dominant throughout the entire postseason. So it'll be interesting to see how the Yankees respond. They've got 2 more in Cleveland, and hopefully the Guardians can just carry over this momentum. I know that a lot of people say that momentum in baseball doesn't exist, but I think you've got to come out feeling pretty good after tonight's win if you're a Cleveland Guardian and if you're a Guardians fan. And you've kind of gotta feel like you were shell shocked as a Yankees fan because you had your guy on the mound in the bottom of the ninth and he couldn't seal the deal for your team. So it'll be really interesting to see how the Yankees respond to that. I believe they play again tomorrow night. So yeah, that's pretty much my thoughts. I think that this series is probably wrapped up in 6. I don't really think the Guardians have it in them to move past the Yankees, although I would really like to see it. I just don't think it's going to happen. I think we're probably going to get a Dodgers-Yankees World Series, which is the worst possible outcome for an Astros fan.
I just think it's interesting because I have said this multiple times on this podcast that the American League sucks. So I did a little digging today on why that is. But let me just share this with you. This is why the American League sucks even more than what we've already suspected. Um, the American League is a product of how they played against the Chicago White Sox. Okay. Um, the Yankees had the best record in the American League. Well, guess what? They went 5-1 against the White Sox. Okay. Um, the Baltimore Orioles went 6-1. The Guardians went 8-5, and then you had teams like the Royals who went 12-1, the Twins who went 12-1, the Astros went 4-2, and the Tigers went 10-3. If you look at almost all of those records, like take for instance the Twins, the Royals, and the Tigers for sure. If you take away them playing the White Sox, all three of those teams are below 500, and it's not particularly close. If they would have just played a 500 team there, you would have seen 3 to possibly 4 more teams just be a 500 team. So we knew that the American League sucked, but looking at how they would how their records would be without playing the White Sox makes it even worse. The Guardians were 8-5. I think the Guardians won 92, 93 games. If you take away 8 of their wins, they're an 84-win team. The Yankees were 5-1. If you take away 5 of their wins, they're an 89-win team. Which actually, if you think about it, all of those records look more accurate for what the teams actually should be the way they were playing. To me, the whole American League is just a product of how they played against the White Sox. And the White Sox really inflating their records helped propel them into the postseason. Because I'm going to tell you right now, there's an argument to be made that there were better teams like the Mariners that didn't make the postseason as compared to like the Royals and the Tigers. So to me, it's just it all depends on how you played against the White Sox. And thankfully for the AL Central, they got to play them 13 times.
I'm going to push back on your comment about the Mariners because while their pitching staff was one of the most dominant in baseball history, their offense was piss poor. They proved that they didn't deserve to be there. I mean, when you've got a pitching staff that is only giving up like 3 runs per game, you should be able to win almost every baseball game you play. But when you have an offense that is historically bad like that, mashed up with a historically good pitching staff, you're if you can't score runs, you're not going to win games. I know that part of baseball is run prevention, and that's on the pitching side. But if you're only eking across 1 or 2 runs a game, you're not going to win very many games. So you're proving at that point that you don't deserve to be there. Now I believe that I honestly, in my opinion, I think that every team so far this season, there hasn't been one really complete team. I will say that the one team I thought was complete was the Padres, especially in the last 3 months of the season, where their rotation was absolutely dominant, their bullpen was lights out, and their lineup was knocking the cover off the ball. But then they ran into the Dodgers, and then in the postseason they took them to 5. But they went 24 innings consecutive without scoring a run, which inevitably led to a streak that the Dodgers set for 33 straight scoreless innings when they won Game 1 against the Mets in the NLCS 9-0. So they ran into a Dodgers team that has started pitching very well. And I think you're continuing to see that now as they thumped the Mets last night, and they are continuing to thump the Mets tonight. The Miracle Mets kept having comeback after comeback, and they have not been able to do that so far with this Dodgers pitching staff. So I think, that was really honestly the only complete team I had seen, and they just happened to run into a red-hot Dodgers pitching staff, couldn't score runs. It was really unfortunate the way that series ended. Obviously, I'm going to keep saying that because I don't like the Dodgers or the Yankees. So that was honestly the only complete team. I think that every team remaining still has holes. I think that the Yankees really lack lineup depth. I'm going to keep saying it because honestly, that is what we saw over 162. And they have gotten bailed out a couple times by the Guardians playing poor defense. Like that, I believe it was the first game where Judge hit a pop up in the infield, and it fell in between two defenders. The Yankees scored a run there. So I just, I don't think that their lineup is the greatest. Now, obviously, I'm saying that as sitting from a perspective of a team who's a fan of a team who's been eliminated, so I can't really talk. But I don't think that any team remaining is the best team in baseball. And quite honestly, I don't think any team this year played like they wanted to be the best team in baseball. I think every team had their holes, and there wasn't a really fully complete team as we've seen in the past.
I definitely agree. I don't know that I have that much more to say, especially about like the Dodgers and the Mets series. I can say one thing: Freddie Freeman not being in their lineup, and having that ankle injury, sure puts a kink into their plans. Especially if they were to go on to make it to the World Series, because they need his bat in their lineup. Their lineup looks very slim without him. You've got Ohtani, you've got Betts, and then tonight I think they're batting like Teoscar. Don't get me wrong, he's a good player, but their lineup looks a lot deeper with Freddie hitting in the 3-hole behind Betts. I'll be interested to see if he even plays the rest of this series, or if they just try to let him rest. I had heard that if this was like during the season and this ankle injury would have occurred, he would have been out like 4 to 6 weeks. So for the fact that he is still trying to play on it is pretty incredible. So, I mean, shout out to Freddie for even giving it a shot, because, I mean, he looks like he's in terrible pain trying to play.
Yeah, I think it's pretty telling that I forgot what game it was, but he got on base. It was late in the innings, and he immediately called time and ran off the field. Like, he didn't even attempt to stay on the back. He knew immediately that he was getting pinch run for coming out of the game. And I believe it was in like the 6th or 7th inning. So there was still a chance for him to come back up in the order. But I mean, he's that injured to where he knows that if he gets on base late in the game, he's coming out immediately, because, I mean, shoot, at this point, the runner, like if someone hits a single, he's probably outrunning Freeman on the bases. He's probably going to pass him up. So, that it's really unfortunate, the timing of his injury, but, he's trying to play through it, and that's commendable. But, I mean, let's talk about Shohei Ohtani and the way that he's been playing. I know that you didn't really say you had much to talk about in the NLCS, but throughout this entire postseason, up until tonight, he was hitless, with nobody on base, and all of the damage he had been doing was with runners on, which I think is the definition of clutch, because, I mean, while it would be great for him to produce with nobody on, the fact that he is able to produce when runners are on is impressive, and he has done some incredible things this postseason already. I'm not gonna go, I'm not gonna talk about him too much, because I think everybody is a little fatigued from Ohtani talk. But just the fact that he hasn't let the lights get to him like guys like Judge have, or last year Betts and Freeman, has been really impressive. So I mean, I kind of already said this when we first started giving our postseason breakdown, that we've already seen Ohtani play for something that matters to him. Despite what a lot of people think, the World Baseball Classic does mean something to a lot of these players. And we saw him be one of the most dominant players in the world during that tournament, where there was less margin for error than there is for this MLB postseason, where you're playing in a series instead of a single or double game elimination. So we've seen him be the most dominant player in the world, winning it all for Team Japan in 2023. So we already kind of got a glimpse at what it would look like for Ohtani to be, on the postseason stage. Now, we never got that with the Angels, even though they had 2 of the greatest players of our generation on their team. Couldn't build around it. They couldn't build around either Trout or Ohtani. Obviously they tried with Rendon, but that didn't work. They can't field the pitching staff to save their life. Lowell Angels. But, we are now seeing it, and he has lived up to the hype. The hype is real, and it is garnered because he has gone out there and proved that he is the real deal and that he deserves the wheelbarrow of money that he will be receiving up until he's like 60 years old because of that backloaded contract.
I agree. He's the ultimate in ball player. He never lets the moment get too big for him. I mean, that leadoff homer he hit tonight, that was an absolute missile. When he gets a hold of a baseball, it is traveling fast. He does not hit cheap shots. He is Aaron Judge, but with a better contact rate. He is special, and honestly, like I know that like you said, that the Ohtani fatigue, but like it's hard not to talk about him when he is the best player that we have ever seen. Bonds may be the best hitter we've ever seen, but Ohtani is the total package between hitter and next year pitcher, which we have already seen in 2022 and 2023, and 2021. So it's hard not to discuss him.
So we got a score update and pretty much a series update. Mookie Betts just hit a 2-run home run with Shohei Ohtani on base. The Dodgers now lead 7-2 in the top of the sixth. They will go up 3-1 in this NLCS, and they will be going to the World Series. I hope it's a case of the Cleveland Guardians blowing a 3-run lead to a 3-1 lead to the Chicago Cubs. But as it stands right now, the Dodgers will be going to the World Series after winning this game. They haven't clinched, and they won't clinch tonight, but it's pretty much a wrap when you're up 3-1. Although Kirby, you have experience blowing a 3-1 lead against the Dodgers.
Ouch.
So
it stings.
2020 is a fake season, so you don't have to worry about that. But
hey, if 2020 is fake, then you can't count that ALCS appearance. So just wanted to throw that out there.
That's still 6 straight.
I'm just gonna throw that one out there. If you don't want to count it, we don't have to count it. We won't count the ALCS appearance either. Okay, so one thing that we wanted to discuss that we were talking about earlier, is from Hurricane Milton that hit the Tampa Bay area. It basically destroyed Tropicana Field, more specifically the roof at Tropicana Field. And they have already determined that field will not be playable for 2025. Now, that being said, I'm not sure where the Tampa Bay Rays are going to play their home games this year, but it's clearly not going to be there. I don't know. I have a couple of ideas. I'm going to run these by you, okay? First of all, it's going to be really disappointing because you're going to have 2 major league teams not playing at MLB quality or caliber stadiums, being the A's and now the Rays. So that's honestly a really bad look on the league. I have a couple of ideas of where they could play. Depending on what the Marlins schedule looks like, maybe they could play their home games in Miami, which really sucks for them because nobody comes to those games to begin with for the Marlins. If the Marlins are playing the Braves, there's more Braves fans there. If the Marlins are playing the Red Sox, there's more Red Sox fans there. So I don't know how the Rays would ever get fans to go across the state to Miami, but that's an option. It's at least a covered stadium. Something else that you got to think about being in South Florida is it is really freaking hot there, pretty much all of baseball season. Now, granted, Atlanta plays in an open air stadium, but you're talking about 8 hours north, 9 hours north, where it's hot, but it's not as hot as South Florida is for a solid 5 months.
It's also humid. Don't forget that. The humidity kills when you're on a peninsula.
Yes. I did have another thought. There's several spring training facilities right around them that they could play at, but once again, they're all open air stadiums. The Braves play in Sarasota County, which is actually right next to Tampa Bay, and theirs is brand new. I don't know how much damage they sustained, but that is an option that they could use. And then I had this thought too. what if MLB decides to have them tour around the country a little bit? Like maybe they play for a couple of weeks in Mexico City. Maybe they play for a couple of weeks in Puerto Rico. Maybe they play for a couple of weeks in London. Maybe they just kind of tour around a little bit and kind of parade the Rays around. I don't know how that looks. I think it's a scheduling nightmare knowing that they can't play at Tropicana Field. The Rays are obviously a small market team. This has got to be an absolute nightmare for the commissioner's office. I feel bad for their fans because they are not going to get to see them play at their home stadium. But I'm not really sure what a good solution is. Because they're not a team like the Yankees that you could tour around and they're a big product. You know, if Yankee Stadium got destroyed, you could put the Yankees wherever you wanted and they will fill the stadium. Not the Rays. The Rays are not going to fill it, especially since they just sold off some of their best pieces. So, I don't know. What do you think, gentlemen? Y'all give me some ideas.
The Yankees and the Rays both have another field there in Tampa. Steinbrenner Field is in Tampa, and that's where Loe the Tarpons play, and that is the Yankees spring training facility. So, yeah, again, depending on how the damage is there, it's always an option. I have two other ones. Who says they don't take over College Stadium? I mean, I know they have seasons too, but they only go up until June. So who says on some of the days that they're not playing there, they take over, I don't know, USF, Tampa. They could do that. And I guess the other one is, I mean, there's football stadiums nearby. It's not completely out of the question to do something there. So I don't know.
The Buck Stadium is open, right? It's open, right?
Yeah.
Yep. It's gonna be a hot summer ball down there. I'll tell you that much. I've been to Disney World and it sucks.
I'm laughing right now because I am I am reading an article that says, "Will the Rays play in Oakland?" I'm just saying, there's an open baseball stadium in Oakland. I'm just saying, will Oakland fans get to root for one more baseball team? So another thing about this that has been talked about, but we did not mention, is the fact that the Rays have already unveiled plans to move to a new stadium starting in 2028. Is this going to be a 3-year relocation where the Rays are moving around year to year? Because financially, first of all, Rays ownership is cheap. It already is going to be out. The Trop is already going to be out of commission for the 2025 season. Why? Financially, it does not make sense for them to repair the roof of the stadium. I've heard that it's going to cost around $110 million to repair those damages to the stadium. So that doesn't make sense financially to go out and spend for just 2 more years of baseball. It doesn't make sense. So I'm wondering if this is more of a long-term problem that the Rays are going to have because they have already made plans to build a new stadium. So that's just something to think about there, because that's huge. That's huge when factoring, where they're going to play.
Yeah, I just don't know I don't really think there is a solid solution here. I mean, I don't, they really don't even have a fan base. Like, their fan base is not big. So wherever they go play, not many people are going to show up for the home team. If they show up, they're going to be showing up more than likely to watch the visiting team. So I don't know. That's like I said, MLB is in a really tough spot. They've got some critical decisions to make. And the thing is schedules are already set. So they're really going to have to do some figuring on where they're going to play. It's just a scheduling and conflict nightmare. I mean, maybe what ends up happening is, they can't find a stadium that's good, and when they go to their visiting team's ballpark, maybe they're supposed to be the home team, and then they're just the home team at said ballpark. If they're supposed to be playing the Yankees at home, maybe they go to Yankee Stadium and they're the home team instead of the Yankees. I think that's also kind of stupid, because that's not their ballpark, but at the same time, if it's an MLB caliber stadium that they won't have otherwise, that they can play in. So I don't really know. I don't know. It's a pickle that they're in for sure.
I got a couple fun ones.
Let's hear.
I'm reading the Tampa Bay Times article. So one of their suggestions, Olympic Stadium in Montreal. That would be a very interesting one. Their stadium is there, and it could probably very easily be converted to a diamond. And then the other one is Schwab Field in Omaha.
Oh man, interesting. Okay, so the Montreal idea to me is interesting because what if they draw more fans in Montreal than they do in Tampa? Do they just ship the team back to Montreal? Ship that team to Montreal?
Well,
I don't know. Just a thought.
So I think that would be a great selling point for bringing a team back to Montreal. Considering that the Rays and Tampa Bay have already agreed to build a new stadium in Tampa, the Rays will be staying in St. Petersburg. But that could be a great audition for Montreal baseball to return to the city. So I think that wouldn't be a horrible idea, honestly, because I think that you would have Montreal fans that come out and show up in desperation, trying to prove that they deserve a team once again. So I think that honestly is probably the best solution, even though that sucks for Rays fans because you're going to go a whole season without really being able to see your team play baseball. But I think, it's a great audition for the Montreal fans to prove that they deserve another baseball team in their city. So I think that would probably be the best solution.
If they could get like 15,000-ish fans or more to show up in Montreal for a team that's not really theirs, what you're looking at there is a team that would be better supported than probably 5 to 6 other teams in the league, which that is a very good audition if you want to have a team back in Montreal, as a quote unquote expansion team. So, I mean, I say it's worth a shot. What's the worst that happens? Nobody shows up. Nobody's going to show up if they go to a AAA field either. So, especially when it's mid-July and you've got a 7 o'clock game and it's 99 degrees outside with, an 89% humidity. Nobody's sitting outside for that. I'm sorry. It's South Florida. It sucks. There's no, that's a lose-lose.
Yeah,
very unfortunate.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see over the next couple of months what we learn, especially because they've already, since they've already said that, hey, they're not going to play there, it will not be ready. I think the last thing that we wanted to maybe discuss, Joe, you and I had talked several months ago now about the Astros possibly having a naming rights battle with Minute Maid Park and it not being Minute Maid Park anymore. Well, now that is all coming to fruition, and it is, from what we're hearing, official that it will no longer be Minute Maid Park, and it will be Daikin Park, from Daikin Industries, who run AC systems. Joe, what are your thoughts on that, going from the juice box to the ice box?
So it's not official yet, but I heard from a first-hand source that way back in May that the Astros would and Coca-Cola would no longer continue their naming rights deal that was signed back in, I believe it was 2002, because Enron originally had the rights to the field, and then they had a situation. So when Coca-Cola gained the naming rights, they signed a 30-year, $100 million contract that was supposed to go until 2032. But they decided that they no longer wanted part in that contract, and that so Minute Maid will no longer be the name of the stadium, which is kind of weird. It's very weird, actually. It's kind of like the renaming of the crypto arena. No one's gonna call it that. It's still Staples. You cannot convince me otherwise. It will still be Minute Maid Park. It'll just have a different name on it. But yes, I heard way back in May that that was the case, and the Coca-Cola and the Astros would separate, and that there would be a new name for the stadium down on Crawford. Michael Schwab, who is a beat reporter for the Astros, who has broken a few stories in the past, came out today saying, "I'm hearing Minute Maid is removing their name from the Houston baseball stadium. Rumor is it will become Daikin Park for the 2025 and beyond. Daikin is the world's largest air conditioning manufacturer, HQ'd in Japan." And then he goes on to say that more information will be released in the coming months, but that is what he's hearing as of right now. And I believe it, because there have been several social media posts, along with the firsthand account that I've heard, that Coca-Cola and the Astros will be separating, and Minute Maid will no longer have the naming rights for Minute Maid Park. I don't like it, if I'm being honest. Minute Maid Park kind of has a ring to it, and again, I know it's the nostalgia. It's what it's been called outside of 2 seasons. But it's Minute Maid Park, and I think that the writing was kind of on the wall, and this is gonna sound really crazy, but this kind of confirmed, what I had been told earlier in the year, is after the derecho that hit Houston all the way back in June, the Minute Maid Park sign that was on the stadium had parts of it blown off, and they went the entire rest of the season without it being repaired. And in my mind, that confirmed that what I had heard was true, because why would you spend, those signs are huge. I can only imagine it costs hundreds of thousands, or not hundreds of, but tens of thousands of dollars to replace. And why would you replace it and fix it if you are just going to move on at the end of the year from that title sponsor? That made sense in my mind, and that kind of confirmed it. And we've subsequently heard other people come out and say that they've also had inside knowledge on, the way that those negotiations were going down. And then we have Michael Schwab coming out and not confirming it, but giving credence to those rumors today. So I think that the Juice Box used to be the perfect name for Minute Maid Park, but I unironically think that the Icebox is a very fitting name, because when it comes down to the postseason and the Astros in Houston, their offense just goes cold. Ice cold. They have not been able to hit at home in the postseason. Y'all keep hearing me talk about that. I think this is the most unironic naming of all time, because opposing fans can now just say that, the Astros coming into the postseason are going to be playing in the Icebox, and their offense is going to be able to hit, so they're beatable. Hopefully, Daikin can actually get the AC in Minute Maid Park working, because I know that I can confidently say that all 3 of us have been in that stadium in July when it is 100, it feels like 110 degrees outside, and it's 72 degrees inside the ballpark, and it is not 72 degrees. It still feels like it's a good crisp 90 degrees inside. So hopefully they can pump that thing full of cold air, and really get it feeling like you're playing in a roofed stadium, because at the moment it does not. It is still brutal when you go in there. I see a lot of people breaking a sweat, and you honestly should not have to break a sweat when you're playing inside of a roofed stadium. So, I said, it'll always be Minute Maid. That it's just a name on a building, but it will forever be Minute Maid.
two things that I've been thinking about while you've been talking. First of all, the 300 and 400 levels are excruciating up there in the summer. It is freaking hot up there, even with a covered stadium. Second thing is I'm really interested to see what happens with the train, because the train has the oranges or whatever in the back. What is that going to change to? Is the train going to be is it going to be a flat rail car that has ACs on it? Is it going to have HVAC components? I don't really know what it's supposed to look like, but it's not going to have oranges anymore. Are they going to keep Bobby Dynamite around? I sure hope so. I hope all these things, are there, but it'll be really interesting to see what changes are made at the ballpark.
I doubt that anything, I don't really know that they can change what is sitting in the back of the train, because I think it's like a concrete, I think it's like either plastic or concrete that's just sitting in that thing. I don't know if they're actually going to be able to make any changes to that. Now, it'll be weird having a train filled with oranges that was there because of Minute Maid running across the tracks, so you do have a fit there. But they're not removing the train. That is an homage to Union Station and the fact that Minute Maid was built on top of an old railway yard. So that's not changing. It's literally just going to be the name on the side of the building, and then I guess advertising around the stadium. So again, it's going to be really weird. It will, like I said, you cannot. It's Minute Maid Park. It's Minute Maid Park because you played baseball in Minute Maid Park during the golden era of Astros baseball. I'm not saying that golden era is over. They could obviously win it in Daikin Stadium, but it doesn't roll off the tongue. It sounds horrible. You're saying it. It's not the same. It doesn't have that same feel to it. But it is what it is. You can't stop it. And unfortunately, that is just the case. The name is changing. So, gotta get used to it, but not gonna get used to it at the same time.
I agree. Well, there's one last thing that I wanted to talk about, and it actually is Braves related. While we were gone on our little hiatus the last few days, the Braves fired 3 coaches. They fired both hitting coaches and a catching coach in Sal Fasano. I don't know that this is the right move or not, but ultimately they did make that decision. So I'll be very interested to see in what direction they go, especially with the hitting coaches. 2023, we saw a historic offensive season. Last year, we did not see that. We saw guys that struggled with their approach. But we also had our 2 best players go on the IL for the entire season at one point or another. Not to mention every starter, but I think 2, maybe 3 of them spent time on the IL. So it just injury ridden, but yet still didn't produce for the guys really that were there besides Marcell Ozuna. So the Braves decided to make a change. There's been talks about different guys that could come in and possibly take over that role. One of which is actually Mark DeRosa. But I personally don't think he takes the hitting coach role, because I'm sure he would have to take a pay cut from MLB Network. So I don't see D-Row doing that. Another idea that somebody had was David Ross. If maybe he would want to be one of those, but he was also a catcher. So maybe he could kind of fill both roles from Sal Fasano, but also hitting coach. Not really sure how that would work. There's not really any names to me that just stick out. A lot of people in Braves country obviously want Chipper Jones to come in and be the hitting coach. That's not going to happen either. He already told them he is too busy with his family and his kids. So I don't really know where they go or what direction they decide to go in. But having some new faces around, I really hope helps the club. Speaking of Braves, I am actually wearing a brand new Braves jersey that I got yesterday for my birthday. It is a home white jersey, Chris Sale. Shout out to Kelsey for the birthday present. I got this and a really nice Rainbow Astros jersey. So very pleased about that. Nathan, Joe, is there anything else that either one of you guys want to discuss before we get out of here?
While we're on the topic of coach speak, there was an announcement made earlier this week that Gary Pettis, the longtime Astros third base coach, will no longer be with the team. His contract was up after this year. He signed a 1-year contract after last season, when he was contemplating retiring. So that'll be a big loss for the team. He's a third base coach, but he was a really influential voice around the team. He was one of the guys that's been around the game for all of his life. But he was contemplating retiring after Dusty Baker was not brought back. And Joe Espada and the coaching staff were able to convince him to stay one more season. And obviously this is the end of the road for his tenure as an Astros third base coach. So it'll be interesting to see who the Astros pick to be their third base coach moving forward. He was a very aggressive third base coach. They didn't nickname him the Windmill for no reason. It'll be interesting. It'll definitely feel weird again, not having him, send runners, not having him be aggressive. But yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there. Also, Mauricio Dubon had thumb surgery. He was dealing with a torn ligament in his thumb for the last 2 months of last month of the season. So he got that taken care of, and he should be ready for the start of the 2025 MLB spring training.
Nathan, do you have anything you want to close with, or are you good?
I think I'm good, man.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in tonight. It's Kirby, Joe, and Nathan here. If you have not already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. I've been trying to put that out ever so often. That really helps grow our show. And then also remember, too, we are on Apple Podcasts. If you could leave us a 5-star review, we would really appreciate it. That boosts our numbers so more people can see us and are visible to other people that are interested. So thank you for the support. Our views keep going up, and that makes me really happy. Have a great night, everybody, and a wonderful weekend.